Hello, one and all. It's my Dr. Stone, chapter 215, The Long, Long Road. And you know, in my last video I said that Sai was a bad teacher because Suka didn't know how big the moon was. I was kidding. I was mostly kidding. But this chapter, Suka and Chrome don't know how satellites work, don't know how solar panels work, and don't know there's no atmosphere in space. So, yeah, Sai might be a bad teacher. Sai might be a really, really bad teacher. I mean, I guess Sai is supposed to be their math teacher, but satellites are all about gravity and orbit, two very, very important elements to rocket science. And then when it comes to there being no atmosphere in space, that's also very, very important because they are attempting to build a return rocket, one that needs to pass through the atmosphere of the Earth without burning up and landing in a place they can actually get to. So yeah, these are definitely topics that should have been covered at some point in Sai's lessons. But I mean, I do get it. Ever since the villagers were first introduced, they basically serve the role of us, the readers, not really fully understanding exactly what Senku is saying so that he can explain things in very, very simple terms to us so that we can better understand it. That's what I love most about this series, explain science in a way that's actually easy to understand because Senku is literally explaining it to people who have absolutely no understanding of science. But I just think this could have been such an absolutely freaking amazing opportunity to show what Suka and Chrome have learned from their lessons. When Senku starts explaining a satellite, Kawaku could have asked a question, and Chrome could have answered. Chrome could have explained exactly how a satellite stays in orbit, and Senku would have been surprised and impressed and wondered, where exactly did Chrome learn how to do that? It could have been such great foreshadowing for him, showing how much he's grown this last year. And I do think it's been about a year. I mean, the timeline is a little bit iffy right now. Zeno said it took 3 years to build the rocket. I mean, let's say they spent about 6 months in South America getting that all set up, and then 1 or 2 months in every city they established after that. So I can say they've been in Japan for at least 1 year. At least 1 year, they've been taking lessons from Sai, and yet I'm not seeing any growth. I'm not seeing any progress. I'm not seeing them know anything more now than they did before they started taking lessons, and I just would love some more foreshadowing on that. I would freaking love to see some more foreshadowing. I mean, clearly they're still continuing trying to, learn how to make a return rocket, because we see them spying on Senku and Zeno when they're working, in the last page of this chapter. But I just would have so loved to see a bit more, just a bit more of them, showing their growth, showing their progress. But anyway, though, as I was saying, the timeline does get a little bit iffy here because, yeah, exactly how long was this chapter? I mean, Yo said they've been working on this for years and years, so I think this was a multi-year long chapter. Years went by in this chapter. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I mean, I was arguing with someone online this week who said that because the first rocket took 3 years to make, they had to wait 3 years between every single rocket launch, meaning this was an 18-year-long chapter, and no, that is utterly and completely ridiculous. I mean, for one thing, they have infrastructure now. They actually have, the factories they need to build the rocket parts, which they didn't have 3 years ago, so clearly it wouldn't take 3 years to rebuild the rocket from scratch. And for a lot of these launches, I don't think they're actually starting from scratch. I mean, for some of the rockets, especially the one that exploded so utterly magnificently, I could definitely say, yeah, there's not much salvageable there. But for others, they just kind of fell over. I think Senku could have, brought them up from the ocean. We do see them actually trying to bring things up from the bottom of the ocean, repair the broken parts, replace the broken parts, and then just move on to the, next rocket launch without actually starting over from scratch. I mean, my best guess is this chapter took place over, let's say, 2 or 3 years. And at the start of this chapter, Senku was 23. Let's say he's around 25, 26 now. So yeah, a lot of time has passed. A lot of time has passed. Though we also can't forget, it's only been like 10 years since he first woke up. I mean, okay, longer than that. From Senku's perspective, it's only been 10 years of him being awake and active and not petrified. So yeah, I mean, he has come a very, very long way. It took him less than 10 years from his own perspective to start building rockets again. Oh, I love it. I freaking love it. Oh, and speaking of Senku building rockets, it was said in this chapter that Senku was the only high schooler to launch a homemade rocket into space. Is that true? Is that actually true? I mean, obviously Senku isn't a real person, but has no high schooler ever launched a homemade rocket into space in our real world? I'm actually not sure about it. If anyone knows, please let me know down below, because I feel like it's something, high schoolers would definitely do. I mean, not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I could certainly see them doing it. And I'm actually kind of wondering if when Senku did, he had actually, notify the FAA, or I guess Japan's version of FAA, the PHG, the Planes, Helicopters, and Gundams Division. Not sure about that. And while I'm talking about our lovely reporter here, I also need to mention that according to Jen, the broadcast won't reach further than mainland Japan, which is, a bit concerning because they're trying to launch a rocket into space, and I feel like space is much, much further than mainland Japan is, so how exactly are they going to get the signals, the pictures, back from the satellites? I mean, are they going to build a more powerful radio receiver on the actual satellite? Have they actually built the satellite yet? Because it seems like, they're actually focused on the rocket itself, and I can't imagine, they'd actually put a fully built satellite into these rockets for the test launches, because, that'd be utterly, utterly insane, especially after the first few, exploded or fell over or just broke utterly and completely. And I really am glad the rockets didn't work on the first try. I mean, seriously, they straight up said getting an unmanned rocket up into space is gonna be a walk in the park. No, it's not. Even with a NASA scientist and Senku, it's not going to be that easy. It is not going to be that easy. I mean, even today, even modern rockets explode quite regularly when they're, doing the original testing. I mean, I think just a couple weeks ago, was it Tesla tried to launch a rocket, and as soon as it, landed back on the tarmac, it exploded and just into a giant ball of fire. So yeah, obviously there's going to be some issues with the first couple tests. And the first one, I love how it just spiraled out of control and landed in the ocean. Oh my god. As everyone just kind of staring at in just shock and dismay, and I'm not really sure what else to describe these expressions as other than surprise. I mean, seriously, the thing just spiraled right into the ocean. And honestly, I'm kind of worried that everyone is standing, a little bit too close to the actual rocket launch. Because I feel like, when we launch rockets nowadays, we don't let people get that close because, there's a very good chance the rockets might explode. I mean, seriously, if that one had, spun a little bit differently, it could have crashed right into all the viewers, the spectators, and they all would have died. And that would have been interesting. Very, very interesting. But anyway, though, then they fix the issues with the first launch. They go try to launch the Senku 2, and it straight up explodes in a massive ball of fire, which, yeah, is really, really close to all the spectators again. So you might want to move a bit back. You might want to move a bit further back for this one. But anyway, it turns out that giant massive explosion was caused by a bit of faulty wiring, which leads Sai to point out how in programming, forgetting a single hyphen in a line of code can cause the entire program to fail, and oh, he is not kidding. He is seriously not kidding. I mean, there's a semester where I was a TA for a class that taught C++, and oh God above, seriously. If a student forgot a single semicolon at the end of a line of code, the entire program would fail, and it's not like the peer would say, hey buddy, you're missing a semicolon in line 37, we want to fix that. No. Instead it would print out pages and pages and pages of errors, and you had to trace them back all the way to source figure exactly where the issue was being caused, and oh my God above, that was truly a nightmare. That was truly, truly a nightmare. But anyway, then they keep going, and the Senku 3 takes on a much different design, looking much cruder than the ones before it, and seeming to be a single-engine rocket instead of a multi-engine rocket. Curious about that, but, that one seems to fall right over. So they move on to the Senku 4, which goes back to having multi-rockets and takes on a much more cone shape, and that also, just flies insanely and then lands back in the ocean. And again, this thing is flying very, very wildly, and there's spectators like 200 feet from the rocket launch site. You guys might want to move. You might want to move really, really far back. Honestly, you should probably evacuate the entire freaking island if you're going to be launching freaking rockets on it. But anyway, then the Senku 5 and 6 also explode, and then the Senku 7, it works, it gets up there, it's flying higher and higher and higher, and they're so happy, they're so excited, they're cheering, and then it explodes magnificently. Oh my God, this is a beautiful explosion, this is a beautiful, beautiful explosion. Oh, I love it, I freaking love it. But even after all this, even after explosion after explosion after explosion, Senku and Zeno haven't given up. They are so freaking excited. They're so freaking happy to be working on this rock, and they're still going, even as Yo is about to pass out from the amount of effort he's put into this. I mean, he's literally brought to tears by how hard they're working, by how determined they are to get this rocket up and running, and I'm so happy, though something that is a bit concerning is the fact that Zeno's eyes look very, very dark here. I mean, there is some light, like, under them, that seems to be more, just fatigue and exhaustion. Not seeing, the happiness, not seeing the humanity we usually see when he's focused and happy about science. So, is, up to something right now? I mean, I can't imagine he's been sabotaging the rockets, given how determined he seems to be to actually get this up and running. So, instead, is it that he wants Senku to go up in the moon, to basically stay up there, to basically be trapped up there, petrified forever, so he can take over the world with his own brand of science? I mean, that would seem very, very Xeno, but not sure about that. But anyway, speaking of traitor, we didn't really get any more evidence this chapter that Ukyo was a traitor. I mean, all he really did this chapter was explain the satellites will be far above the clouds. That's it. That was I think that was his only panel this chapter, was it? Let me double check. Okay, actually, no, he also explained a bit about why the satellites need electricity. So, yeah, nothing I can really take from that tells me, okay, Ukyo is traitor, Ukyo is sabotaging the rockets. I mean, is Ukyo actually sabotaging the rockets? I mean, that seems unlikely. I think it's the kind of thing Senku would have noticed, but at the same time, okay, this is definitely far-reaching, even for me. But if you actually look at this rocket, actually look at the engine on it, it seems like the tubes are in the wrong place, because the one that's labeled A2B has the tube that says A3B on it, and the one that says A1B doesn't have the A1B plugged into it, so is Ukyo actually sabotaging the rockets to keep Senku from going up into space? I mean, maybe? Again, that's a really, really big stretch, even for me. I can't really say one way or the other, but please, let me know all this down below. How long was this chapter? Because clearly, years have passed between the start of it and the end of it, and I'm not sure about that. Also, do you think that anyone's actually sabotaging the rocket, or do you think, it's just really, really freaking hard to make a rocket work? Do you think Sai's being a good teacher right now, or do you think he's really not doing enough? Because, like I said, Chrome and Suka should have known something about satellites, orbits, atmosphere, all those super important things that are needed to build a freaking return rocket that'll pass through the atmosphere and land back on Earth. What do you think's gonna happen next? How much more trial and error will it take to actually get this rocket up into space? And when they do, what will they find? Will the satellite actually show them about the Y-Man? I mean, we have a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities here. So far, the Y-Man is seen very, very, passive. I mean, yes, he's trying to petrify everyone, but that's it. And he isn't really even trying all that hard. It's not like he's, dropping down Medusas from space anymore for whatever reason. So what's up with that? I mean, this is definitely crazy, but what if as soon as they launch satellite into space, the Y-Man shoots it down with a laser beam from his moon base? Oh, that'd definitely be crazy. Definitely be crazy, but also be really, really interesting and really show Senku and the rest of them, okay, we might need to rethink this whole let's go to the moon plan, or figure out a way to make, a rocket that is laser beam proof. I mean, maybe if they just cover it in Medusas, it'll be invincible. Unlikely. Actually, if they cover it in Medusas, it will be sonar proof, so the Y-Man might not see it coming, and that might actually work, because that's the reason why the Y-Man was actually able to get the Medusas onto Earth, because they were sonar proof. Sonars couldn't pick them up, and, they spent all that time building a sonar proof ship when they were in South America. It might have been leading up to this. It might have been leading up to them actually, using the Medusas to make the rocket itself sonar proof, radar proof, whatever proof, so that the Y-Man wouldn't see them coming. That actually makes a lot of sense. Interesting, very interesting. But please, let me know all this down below. Be sure to like, subscribe to this video, and until then, peace!